Right. I'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining our meeting this evening. This is the Bureau of Land Management's public scoping meeting for the Castner Glacier Recreation Area Management Plan. My name is Carrie Conacher, and I am a contractor working with the BLM on the environmental assessment for the plan. Before we begin, I'd like everybody to know in the meeting that we're going to record for future use, and it's going to be made available online for any of those that could not attend tonight. You may have heard it start recording a few moments ago. Please turn off your microphone and camera during the presentation portion of the meeting. If you have any technical issues during the presentation, let us know in the chat box, and we will try and give you a hand with that. Any questions about the presentation, you can enter those into the chat box, and we'll be saving those for the question and answer portion, which will happen after the presentation. We're also going to be sharing relevant links in the chat box during the meeting. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of Zoom controls for anybody that's not familiar with Zoom. Probably most of you are, but just in case, we've got the unmute and mute button over here, stop video. Stop and start video is in the left-hand side of your toolbar at the bottom. And then if you're joining by phone, I know we have a couple phone participants, you can mute by pressing *6 and unmute also. If you want to access the chat box at any time during the meeting, there's a little message bubble right here in the center that will pull that up for you. So here's our agenda for tonight's meeting. First, we're going to go over some staff introductions and explain the purpose of today's meeting. Then we'll go through an overview of the Castner Glacier Recreation Area Management Plan, or RAMP, as we'll mostly be calling it for the evening. Presentation is about 25 minutes long, and then we'll take a quick 5-minute break, and then there'll be a question and answer session. Like I said, if you have any questions that come up that you just want to get down before the presentation is over, just enter those in the chat box and we'll read them out loud during the question and answer session. So any plan documents that we have up right now and this presentation itself can be accessed at the BLM's e-planning website, which the link is down here on the screen. If you want to follow along with our presentation, the PowerPoint slides are available for download on the website, and Kennedy's going to drop that into the chat box now. So I'd like to briefly introduce our project staff that are on the meeting this evening. The Castner Glacier area is managed by the BLM's Glen Allen Field Office, and we have Denton Hamby with us tonight. Denton, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Denton Hamby. I'm an outdoor recreation planner at the Glen Allen Field Office. Corey Larson is actually the lead on this project, and I'm filling in for him tonight. And hopefully we can have a good meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Denton. And Marnie Graham is also with the Glen Allen Field Office. Marnie?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Marnie Graham, field manager here at the Glen Allen Field Office for the Bureau of Land Management. I'm really grateful for all of your participation tonight. Look forward to your comments and input. Thank you for taking time to attend.
Thanks, Marnie. And then we also have Georgina Behringer.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm the Anchorage District NEPA Planner over both Glen Allen and the Anchorage Field offices.
Thank you, Georgina. We also have a few other contractors besides myself working on either the RAMP document or on the environmental assessment for the RAMP, and they are Linda Pringle. Linda, you might be on mute.
Yeah, I was just trying to find my mute button. Hi, I'm Linda Pringle. I'm a contractor and been working on the RAMP document.
Thanks, Linda. And Robin Reich.
Good evening. I'm Robin Reich. I'm a contractor working on the environmental assessment.
Robin, you're on mute as well, I think.
Hi there, I'm Robin Wright. I'm I'm a contractor working on the environmental assessment.
Thanks, Robin. And then we have Kennedy Kuchowski.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kennedy. I'm another one of the contractors working on the environmental assessment side.
Okay, so why are we holding the meeting this evening? We would like to explain the need for and to present the key points of the draft recreation area management plan for the Castner Glacier, and to answer your questions and explain how you can give your feedback about the proposed plan. So how do we get here? The BLM has observed increased use and interest in the area over the past 16 years. They've been monitoring this area, including vandalism, unauthorized tours and gatherings, people doing unsafe things at the glacier, disruptions and things of that nature, leading to a need for the BLM to develop a plan. So to draft the ramp, the BLM identified certain goals and objectives for the area, which are required to align with the overarching management direction, which is already given by the East Alaska Resource Management Plan. And those goals and objectives are to preserve the natural resources and the existing visitor experience in the area. So at this stage, the BLM is looking for public input on the proposed plan and help identifying additional issues or challenges that we might not even be aware of. This ramp document will be analyzed in an environmental assessment under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Linda Pringle to introduce the draft ramp and explain in a bit more detail.
Yeah, hi everyone. Carrie, can you confirm that you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. I just had a malfunction, so I'm back. So hi everyone, as Carrie said, I'm Linda Pringle, and I'm going to be providing some background on Castner Glacier and the need for this ramp, and we'll take you through the actions the BLM is proposing. So the Glen Ellen Field Office manages 4.3 million acres of public lands within South Central and Southeast Alaska, as you can see in the yellow on the map on the screen. Within these lands is Castner Glacier, which is located approximately 2.5 hours south of Fairbanks and 2 hours north of Glen Ellen. This location presents management challenges for the field office in the form of travel time, inclement weather issues, and a lack of facility or infrastructure development or basic services. Next slide, to slide 7, please. So the Castner Glacier is within lands that are managed by the East Alaska Resource Management Plan, which is a high-level planning document providing long-term management direction spanning a wide area in eastern Alaska. Upon the signing of the East Alaska Plan in 2007, the Castner Glacier planning area was included within the Delta Range Special Recreation Management Area, which is an administrative unit or geographic area where existing or proposed characteristics are recognized for their unique value, importance, or distinctiveness. The actions proposed within this ramp will be consistent with the goals and objectives outlined in the East Alaska Plan and the Delta Range Special Recreation Management Area. Slide 8, please. So these goals include managing recreation to maintain a diversity of recreational opportunities, maintaining the existing opportunity spectrum classes designated in the East Alaska Plan, describing specific trails and further defining the conditions of limitations identified in the East Alaska Plan, and maintaining the seasonal closure to snow machines from October 15th to May 15th. Slide 9, please. And the goals also include maintaining minimal or no development at trailheads that access areas for primitive or semi-primitive recreation experiences. No helicopter-supported commercial activities are permitted in areas managed for primitive recreation experience, and the trails will be managed to provide access to public lands, recreation, and subsistence opportunities to minimize resource impacts and reduce user conflicts. Slide 10, please. So the Castner Glacier ramp will provide a long-term vision to address changes in use patterns since the East Alaska Plan was developed in 2007. It would also further define and implement the goals prescribed within the East Alaska Plan and within the Delta Range Special Recreation Management Area, as we just reviewed in the previous slides. In particular, the ramp will manage the area for primitive, semi-primitive, and roaded natural recreation opportunities, and will propose specific actions to manage future recreation activity in a way that attempts to reduce the risk of degradation to the natural and recreational resources that are essentially resulting from overuse. So the ramp will also propose the implementation of monitoring protocols that will ensure the proposed actions are responding to the current and future demands within the Castner Glacier planning area. Slide 11, please. So the Castner Glacier planning area encompasses almost 4,700 acres of land. There's a primitive road that is north of the creek that leads about half a mile off the Richardson Highway. And beyond the primitive road is a non-maintained route accessible in the summer months, and that leads to several approaches to the glacier. And then south of the creek is an unmaintained foot trail that can access the ice cave. And then winter access to the cave is primarily along the creek bed. So there are 4 small pull-offs at the bridge and a small parking area at the beginning of the primitive road north of Castner Creek. And these are not maintained during the winter. A larger developed parking area is located south of the creek and then west of the highway. And this is maintained during the winter by the Alaska Department of Transportation. So Castner Glacier sees approximately 12,000 or more visitors per year and currently has 4 approved special recreation permit operators. Monitoring has primarily consisted of monthly site visits in the winter that focus on violation of the snow machine closure. And monitoring trips by both BLM and the law enforcement have increased substantially over the last 2 years. Slide 12, please. So Castner Glacier has become increasingly popular for residents and out-of-state visitors. There's more interest from commercial operators to lead tours to the ice cave, with roughly 24 operators expressing interest over the past year. These factors have created conflicts with private users, and the BLM has received complaints of overcrowding, dog feces that is not being disposed of properly, large events, or group gatherings that are affecting the overall recreational experience. Slide 13, please. So the BLM has seen an increase in winter visitation from just approximately 750 visits in 2010 to around 7,500 to 8,000 visits in 2022 and 2023. This is roughly 10 times more people visiting the ice cave in just over a decade. And recent monitoring throughout the summer has also shown an increase in visitation during the summer season as well, which has typically not been a popular season to recreate at Castner Glacier. Slide 14, please. So now that we have a background for the area and issues that are being faced, I'm going to walk you through the 5 proposed actions that the ramp is proposing to implement. So first, the BLM is proposing to establish recreation management zones and recreation setting characteristics from the existing recreation opportunity spectrums to manage the unique areas within the Castner Glacier planning area for different experiences and outcomes. The BLM is proposing to implement rules and regulations with the intention of preventing user conflicts, protecting recreational resources, and supporting or enhancing the recreation setting characteristics. Commercial use limits are being proposed that would place a cap on the number of special recreation permits issued to commercial operators. And the BLM is proposing to limit allowable permits and place specific limitations on military training, science and research, and commercial filming or photography. And the ramp would further define limitations on motorized and non-motorized access that was identified in the East Alaska Plan. Slide 15, please. So what is a recreation opportunity spectrum? It is a widely used planning and management framework used to define, classify, inventory, and monitor the existing and desired recreation settings ranging from primitive to urban. So the recreation opportunity spectrum provides users an idea of what to expect in each area. For example, the level of access, development, and social encounters will decrease, and the level of remoteness will increase when you move from this urban to a more primitive location. And the East Alaska Plan divided the Delta Range Special Recreation Management Area into these recreation opportunity spectrum classes. And these will be used as a baseline for the development of the recreation management zones and the recreation setting characteristics for the Castner Glacier Plan. Slide 16. So the existing recreation opportunity spectrum classes at Castner Glacier are road and natural, which you can see in blue on the map. And this is classified as a natural environment with moderate evidence of humans. User concentrations are low to moderate, but maybe high at trailheads. The area is accessible to motorized use in the summer, and sights and sounds of the Richardson Highway are evident year-round. So the semi-primitive non-motorized is in the green section on the map, and this is characterized primarily by an unmodified natural environment. The concentration of users is low, but there is evidence of other users. The area is more accessible than an area in primitive class, but is free of motorized trails and roads. Sights and sounds of the road system are more prevalent than in the primitive class, but they're less prevalent than in the road and natural. So then we have the primitive class, which is shown in the beige color. And this is characterized by an unmodified natural environment where concentration of users is very low and evidence of other users is minimal. There's no summer motorized trails exist, although a seasonal motorized use does occur with snow machines for federal subsistence purposes at a low density. So the sights and sounds of the road system within the zone are non-existent. Slide 17, please. So the first action that we're going to talk about today is proposing recreation management zones and recreation setting characteristics that are developed from these recreation opportunity spectrums that we just talked about. Slide 18. So what are recreation management zones? These are areas that are subdivided within the Castner Glacier planning area, and they delineate specific recreation opportunities. They identify activities, experiences, benefits, and desired recreation setting characteristics, and to protect and enhance each of the zones and assist the BLM with monitoring to ensure each zone is achieving the identified activities, experiences, and benefits. Slide 19, please. So the proposed recreation management zones developed for the existing recreation opportunity spectrum are the road and natural zone, which is in green on the map. And this extends beyond the Richardson Highway right-of-way approximately half a mile. It contains the primitive road on the north side of Castner Creek, parking areas adjacent to or within the highway right-of-way, and user-created dispersed campsites. The zone serves as staging and parking area for access to the glacier or points beyond in the Alaska Range, and future development proposals within the Castner Glacier planning area would occur only within the zone. So the Castner Cave and Trail Zone, which is in orange on the map, this extends from the road and natural zone boundary to the toe of Castner Glacier. The cave entrance, the ice cave, and surrounding uplands below the vegetation line, and all lands between the toe of the glacier and the eastern boundary of the road and natural zone are included. The Castner Cave and Trail Zone is undeveloped and includes the unmaintained foot trail on the south side of the creek and some user-created rock cairns. The footpath north of the creek that leads to multiple approaches to the glacier is also located within the zone, and the primary season of use is November to April. So the Castner Glacial Zone, which is in blue on the map, this one extends from the ice cave entrance easterly up Castner Glacier to the boundary of the BLM and state of Alaska lands. It includes all surrounding uplands below the vegetation line within the Castner drainage and contains an intermittent path for approximately 2 miles of the glacier. And this can vary year to year depending on ice conditions and glacial movement. So there's no other signs of development or human intrusion present within this zone. Can you please move to slide 20? So then within these recreation management areas, we're going to have recreation setting characteristics, and these describe the physical, social, and operational characteristics that will define the future functions and conditions of each of the recreation management zones that we just discussed. So these are established through staff observations, monitoring data, and professional judgment. And since there's quite a bit of information for each of these recreation setting characteristics for each of the zones, I'm just going to do a brief run through of the Castner Cave and Trail Zone, and then the draft ramp that is located on the e-planning website will go into further kind of description for each of the other zones. Slide 21, please. So the physical components of the landscape outline the expectations for remoteness, naturalness, and visitor facilities that one can expect within each zone. So for the Castner Cave and Trail Zone, we are proposing minimal changes to the recreation opportunity spectrum classes, but mostly maintain the area as is and remove any user-created rock cairns during monitoring trips. Next slide, please. So the social components identify how many contacts with other groups a person can expect, what the average group size is, and any evidence of use within the zone. So for the Castner Cave and Trail Zone, the intent is to keep encounters between 7 to 15 contacts per day at peak times when accessing the cave, and to restrict groups to 10 or below unless they are given written approval by BLM prior to arrival. So evidence of use would stay relatively the same, but we would incorporate supplementary rules that would prevent further occurrences of ice graffiti and vandalism. Slide 23, please. So the operational components of the recreation setting characteristics would include public access and types of access allowed, visitor services and information, and management controls and regulations. So for the Castner Cave and Trail Zone, these would be relatively similar to the existing characteristics within the recreation opportunity spectrum classes. There would be no changes to the motorized access restrictions between October 15th and May 15th. However, a 3,000 pound gross weight vehicle limit would be implemented on any motorized use. So the BLM also plans to have staff present on site seasonally during the winter and on busy weekends throughout the summer. And some management controls and regulations would be implemented, and these are explained within the other objectives. Slide 24. So the second action is to implement supplementary rules that would manage resource use conflicts, protect resources, and support or enhance the recreation setting characteristics. These supplementary rules include group sizes would be limited to a maximum of 10 people per group. So groups in excess of 10 individuals must obtain prior written approval from the BLM and may be considered on a case-by-case basis. The ramp would propose a prohibition on specific designated uses within the cave or within 100 feet of the cave entrance. And this would include no drones, no fires, no fireworks, no carving, writing, or defacing of the ice, no artificial lights except for navigational purposes, and no ice climbing, suspension of ropes, anchors, or other implements. So commercial operators conducting business on BLM management lands must have in their possession a valid and current special recreation permit and must identify their transport vehicle via a BLM provided hang tag or placard. So these supplementary rules would benefit the recreation setting characteristics by keeping contacts with people low, with about 7 to 15 encounters during peak times, and ensuring group sizes are maintained below 10, with the intent of achieving a 4 to 6 people group per group maximum. So the evidence of use within the backcountry recreation setting would be managed by restricting ice graffiti and vandalism, and user conflicts and impacts of commercial recreation would be limited by ensuring commercial operators are displaying the right to operate commercial tours at the ice cave. Slide 25, please. So the third action would limit commercial use and identify requirements for permit allocations. This would minimize user conflicts at the parking area, trail system, and the glacier and ice cave. And this action would cap special recreation permits for commercial operators to a maximum of 10, ensuring that demand for commercial recreation opportunities is balanced with the effects to the recreational resources, private recreation users, and does not diminish the proposed recreation setting characteristics. So commercial groups would also be limited to a 10-person maximum for each tour. And permits would be processed in a manner that recognizes the existing 4 permits granted to operators in good standing, provides preference to business and operations plans that support or enhance the recreation setting characteristics, and balance the use of private users versus commercial recreation. So applications would be considered on a first come and first served basis upon completion of the Castner Glacier ramp and the signing of record of decision. And if all applications are received in the same time period and judged to be equally meaningful in relation to the recreation setting characteristics, applications would be processed via a random draw. So issuance of future special recreation permits are subject to a subsequent NEPA analysis. And this would benefit the proposed recreation setting characteristics, as commercial operators would not be able to host, say, for example, 30-person tours at the Glacier, and would reduce the impacts to the backcountry recreation setting. And this action would also minimize the number of commercial tours happening and allow BLM to maintain the Castner Glacier planning area within the primitive and semi-primitive settings. Slide 26, please. So the 4th action would limit other allowable permits into 3 major categories based on past demonstrated use. These categories include science and research, military training exercises, and commercial filming or photography. So the science and research activities would be limited to 3 ongoing projects at any one time. Military training exercises would be limited to 1 ongoing exercise at a time. And commercial filming and photography would be limited to 1 ongoing permit at one time. And the BLM would retain the right to consider land use actions on a case-by-case basis with the accompanying appropriate NEPA analysis, as long as they adhere to all proposed recreation setting characteristics within their respective zones. Slide 27, please. So the final action would further define the existing limited travel management designation from the East Alaska Plan and would better manage motorized access within the Castner Glacier planning area. So the South Non-Motorized Trail located south of Castner Creek would be designated as a non-motorized year-round and would serve as a non-motorized access route to the toe of the glacier and ice cave. And this of course is dependent on stream channel and cave location, which can vary year to year. The North Primitive Road is located on the north side of Castner Creek, and that begins at the Richardson Highway and ends at the Road and Natural Zone boundary. And this would be closed to motorized use October 15th to May 15th annually. The North Non-Motorized Route that begins at the terminus of the North Primitive Road, where it becomes a small footpath, would be closed to motorized use year-round. And all lands below median high water mark would be open to motorized use outside of the October 15th to May 15th closure. So all lands within the Castner Glacier planning area that are open to seasonal motorized use, except for the North Primitive Road, would be subject to a 3,000-pound gross vehicle weight limit. And examples of motorized use below this limit are off-highway vehicles such as side-by-sides, quads, or electric bikes. And no limitations would apply to motorized access for federal subsistence purposes. And this includes snow machines, off-highway vehicles, or other motorized means. So I'm going to turn it back to Carrie, and she is going to walk you through participation methods, and then we'll move into a question and answer period.
Thanks, Linda. So the BLM is now looking for the public's input on the draft ramp. Up on the screen right now, there's a QR code that will take you directly to the Participate Now link for our project. Specifically, we'd like to hear your opinions on what type of recreation activities are suitable at the Castner Glacier. How many people would you expect to encounter at the ice cave? To what extent should use permits be modified, enhanced, or expanded? What limitations and restrictions on use, if any, are needed? Are there any existing trails or other access that we are missing? And any other issues or environmental concerns for the Castner Glacier area? So before we take a break, I do have marks on my screen. Sorry about that. Before we take a break, I'd like to do a quick walkthrough the project website and introduce some key features, including how to make a comment. So bear with me one moment. I'm going to bring up the e-planning website, the BLM's NEPA website. Better on my screen. Okay. Okay. One moment. Sorry, hold on one second. I can't see what is happening. One second. That should be up there now. So here's the project landing page where you will get to if you click on the link, which should be in the chat box. And the homepage contains a brief project description right here. And then some contact information on the right-hand side if you scroll down. And then also presents what stage the project is in. So you can see right now that we're in the scoping period until March 14th, where you can make a comment. If you click on the Documents tab on the left here, it'll pull up all of the project associated documents. And right now we've got the ones that are associated with the scoping period. So you can download each one of these if you'd like. There's the RAMP draft is right here. And then this presentation is also located here if you want a copy of the PDF of our PowerPoint presentation. There's some maps here, and then also sort of an explanation page of the scoping period. So either right here on this Participate Now button, or if you go back up here and you click on Participate Now, you can click to leave your comment right here. So there's comment box, or you can also just drag and drop files into, write a comment in Word if you like, and edit it, or send us JPEGs or maps or things, files. So you can add those there. And then if you want to add your name, you can put that there. You don't have to, and then just hit preview and submit. One moment. Okay. So we're going to go for the comment question and answer period, but comments made in this meeting are not going to be considered as part of the official record. So please make your comments through one of the official portals, which are the website right here. There's a general info email address that you could reach the project staff here, or by regular post mail. There's the address for the Glen Ellen field office there. The comments will be collected until the closure of the scoping period, which is March 14th. At the bottom right of this slide, you can see there's just a mini schedule. We're right here now, we're in public scoping, and then we're going to be continuing to work on the draft ramp and the draft environmental assessment. And then sometime, possibly around summer, we'll have a second comment period where the public can give their input about the draft EA and the draft ramp. And then there's tips for making a substantive comment at this BLM website right here. It's quite handy. So if you want to check that out and see exactly what kind of comment we're looking for. Okay, we're gonna take a short 5-minute break. If anybody needs to go run and get some water or anything, and then we'll return for the question and answer session. Thanks.
Hey, Kennedy, can you add the email?
I'm adding that now, yeah.
Okay, everyone. We're going to come back for the question and answer portion now. Just to go over the controls again, if you're unfamiliar, please raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. And you can do that by going to this reactions button on your toolbar. If you're not seeing this reactions button, you might have 3 dots here that will say more, and you can click on that and it'll take you to like a pull-up window that will have reactions on there. Please keep your camera and microphone off here if you're not speaking. And if you're on the phone, you can *6 to mute or unmute, and you can also *9 to raise your hand. So please use this session just for clarifying questions. And we're not going to enter these into the official record, but we will certainly be taking those comments through the official portals until March 14th. So I do see one question directly to me from Daniel Clark, and he's asked, will the 4 current special recreation permit holders retain their permits, or will they have to reapply? So can someone from the BLM take that question?
Yes, this is Denton Hamby. Yes, applications would have to, current permit holders would need to reapply at this time as part of the process.
Roger that. Thank you.
Thanks, Denton. Do we have any other, that's the only question I see in chat. Do we have any other questions? Oh, and Greg Parrish has his hand raised. So go ahead, Greg. You can unmute and start your video if you can.
Okay, can you hear me?
Want to? Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. My question, as I read through the information. Oh, by the way, thanks everyone for putting this together. Especially Corey, who's not here. He's worked hard. But anyway, so there's obviously this is a remote area and hard to service, but at the moment, what is the current procedure or protocol for like people using the bathroom in this area, especially for guided groups?
And maybe Denton or Marnie might be able to answer that for you.
Sure, I can try and take that one. I mean, part of this process is to define that type of use. Currently, there's no protocol except, we encourage, through the current permittees that exist, leave no trace and pack it in, pack it out activities.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So I have a few direct comments and questions to me as well. So what about the outhouse and parking plan?
I can answer that probably. So the State of Alaska Department of Transportation is working on a parking plan for this area along the right of way. And so we are working with them on their planning efforts as we continue through this planning effort. They're looking to make some right-sized parking that's out of the roadway and improve safety. At this time, though, there is no plans to develop a wayside or restroom services either by the Department of Transportation or the BLM. Winter facility in that area it's very complex out remotely and also in the winter time to maintain restroom facilities. So it's kind of a distance issue. So we're trying to work with operators and the public to to provide education and outreach about ways to plan for that and pack it out, use wag bags, tents, portable systems, etc.
Thanks, Marnie. And then the other question is on slide 25. For the action 3, did it say 10 special recreation permits per year per operator, or that only 10 operators would get a special recreation permit per year? And that is, we would be offering 10 special recreation permits per year.
So
Which would
that's
be
what's
10.
being proposed. And so we're looking at trying to keep within the recreation opportunity spectrum and the benefit, the user experience that people want there. So we're looking at if you are utilizing this area, as you're walking and hiking out to the Castner Glacier, how many people do you hope to encounter during that? How many tour operators do you hope to be encountering, and how many people in those groups do you hope to encounter? And we're trying to find a balance so that we can maintain the user experiences that we learned from the public during our East Alaska planning process. A lot of the framework for this plan comes from the work we did in reaching out with all of our communities during the East Alaska planning process to hear from the public and implement what their desired management by BLM was for that area. And so that's where we got to the eroded natural and the primitive and the semi-primitive. And so that you saw on some of those slides. And so that's the framework, the East Alaska plan that we're trying to implement, because we heard from the public, that's what the public wants for that area, for the kind of user experience. And so now we're trying to fine tune that a little bit through this plan and find out from you, the users, what do you hope to see as you recreate out there? And we would like to hear your comments to that. Okay.
Thanks,
Looks like we
Marnie.
have another person raising their hand.
Yep. Ken, do you want to go ahead and unmute?
Hi, this is Ken Wilson. Can you hear me okay? Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So yeah, my question was on the tenfold increase in number of visitors, up to 10,000 a year. Is there any information about how many of those are associated with commercial operations versus, just private recreationists on the sites out there?
We may have a way to tease out some of that information, and I know if Corey were able to be on tonight, he probably could answer that, but what we can do is take that comment, Ken, and if you would reach out, and we can leave, well, I know on the e-planning site, Corey's contact information is there, and I'm sure we can put it in the chat. And if you wouldn't mind reaching out to him, I know he can provide that information, or some of it. We have different ways that we are doing counts, and we had a number of people that weren't permitted that we've been working through education to help them understand the needed permits. So we have different monitoring strategies, I guess I should say. And so it's probably, there's probably a little room for error, but we do have some numbers.
Thank you. And related question is the group size limitation of 10 that's proposed. Does that apply to commercial groups or also recreationists? And then if it does apply to both, how would that be enforced, so to speak?
Well, and I mean, Denton, you're welcome to jump in and join me, but typically, we've done this through other planning efforts too, for the Volcano Wildlands River, for the Delta Wildlands River corridors, for other step-down plans throughout Alaska. You'll see this with the BLM. And so we're trying, we're looking at proposed limits on both commercial and user groups. So think about yourself going out to this area. Typically what size group are you? And what do you expect to see? And then I guess I would say, add to that we're looking for the typical groups that, that we can manage within what we typically would see or expect, users would expect to see. But that being said, we do have the authority to work with, say, for example, we've had church groups in the past that want to do a trip together and they're going to be going over the group size. So we work with that group to help them find ways to have leave no trace practices and maybe find days that they could visit with where they're going to be least likely to encounter a lot of other people. And so we have options that we could use, and we try to, we try to accommodate people and avoid user conflicts.
Thank you.
I see that Annie Hopper has her hand up. Go ahead, Annie.
Thank you very much. My question is, what is your time frame about the completion of the ramp? What is your goal to have the ramp completed and then the permit process begin? Thank you.
I believe we're on a timeline. I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe we're on a timeline to try to complete the process probably sometime this next fall. And correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I think that's what we're shooting for.
Yeah, we do have a full timeline, and then I think in the ramp, I would have to go and confirm, but it's a 12-month kind of things would be implemented within 12 months of completion of the record of decision. And I can just look that up and confirm.
"12 months from the completion of the ramp, then implementation would begin?"
I'm just going to confirm that right now, and I will pop back in and answer that.
Yeah,
Okay.
typically after we sign a decision, it takes a little bit of time to get that completely implemented. But we're trying to, that's one of the reasons why we're looking for fall, because then we could work with people to try to get permits in place for winter use that following year. So that's, it's always a goal, but we'll find ways to work with people. Some of it is dependent on what comes out of this plan. Maybe for signage or things. So some of it will be implemented, and there's some, it takes a rulemaking process as well sometimes. So there's different pieces that'll get implemented throughout the remainder of the year out of the plan.
Thanks, Marnie. Annie, did that answer your question?
Kind of. When it's
Yeah.
done, it's done, or
Yeah, and if you have something more specific, you can reach out
well, for
to
example, the
Corey for
permitting.
sure.
So the permitting process this year ends December of 2024. And when does it begin again? Or is that kind of, get extended into the 2025 if this is not complete? So I'm just looking at the timeframes like that. When do you reapply? When does this end, et cetera? So we have lots of comments that we'll be submitting, but because we frequent the area so much, but it's hopefully that'll help.
This is a great opportunity to remind everybody that when you're wanting to do a commercial operation with a BLM anywhere, we really want to see your application up to 180 days in advance of when you want to operate. So, the more time you can give us or start working with us and talking to us about your plans, the better, because we do usually have to do some kind of environmental analysis and depending on what your use might be. And so the sooner you start working with us and talking with us, the sooner we can help meet your needs and accommodate you.
Marnie.
Sometimes it takes time for people to get their applications complete because there's some back and forth that can occur where people have questions or we have questions. And so the sooner you can talk with people, the better.
I do have a couple of questions in the chat. I can read now. Gabriel Derrick asked, is there a possibility of day use parking fees to subsidize maintenance and cleanup for commercial photo/video projects? Is that included in the 10 special use permits? And I know that those are separate from the recreational special use permits. They get their own type of permit. It may be a BLM person expert can chime in on this one. Marnie or Denton.
Well, I was gonna say that I think if you have comments about that, what you'd like to see, what you wouldn't like to see, you know, please comment that way. Let us know. We do, the BLM does have the option to implement fees to help offset the cost of operations. And the wonderful thing about recreation areas in the BLM is any fees collected through recreation sites are put back into enhancement for that site. So, you know, we'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on that.
Marnie. Ellen Clark also asked a question. She said, is there any limitation to camping in/at the glacier in winter season?
Not that I'm aware of. I think that's casual recreation use.
I think to my knowledge, there is a few designated campsites within the roaded natural zone. And I don't believe the camping is identified within the other areas. But that would be a really great comment and something to consider.
Good question.
And just to follow up on the implementation and timelines, so this information is in the ramp on the website as well, but issuance of additional special recreation permits would be within 12 months of signing the record of decision. And implementation of any supplementary rules would also be within 12 months of the signing of the record of decision. And so the schedule is to have the final ramp and EA completed in the fall of 2024.
Greg, hi. Go ahead.
Hello. Just two questions. One is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as I scanned through or tried to read as fast as I could, the info you guys provided, there was proposed parking lots. Is that correct? At some part of the plan?
So the parking lots are a DOT action solely with DOT. This plan doesn't have any parking areas proposed.
Okay. And then the other question I had was with these new I don't really want to call them restrictions because that sounds confining, but there's more going on now in this area as this plan would be implemented. Would that then increase the need for possibly a new ranger in either Delta or Glen Ellen?
Well, we do have people that patrol the area already, and we do talk to our recreation monitoring schedules in there. So I would suggest looking at that, and if you have concerns or questions about that, to go ahead and comment. We do monitor the area through the course of our work. And I don't know, Denton, did you want to add anything else about that, or did I cover that?
No, I think you covered it, Marnie. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry, within the ramp, there is a section on monitoring. So there is proposed increase in monitoring throughout the winter. So on a bi-weekly basis, and then in the summer, it would be about a monthly basis.
And we have increased our monitoring efforts over the last few years. That's what's helped us identify better the numbers and increase use.
Okay, anyone else have questions? I don't see anything in the chat right now, and I don't see anyone with their hand raised, so let us know what you need to hear about. And I think that Georgina dropped this into the chat a little bit earlier, but we're looking for input. If you need some questions to start off your comment, what types of recreation activities and opportunities are suitable for the Castner Glacier? To what extent should use permits be modified, enhanced, or expanded? And what limitations and restrictions, if any, are needed? If anybody needs a walk through the project documents or website, we can help with that. Go ahead, Annie.
Also, did you say there would be another public comment period towards the fall, and fall's relative? Is that September or is that November?
Exactly. It's relative. So there will be a comment period again when we release the draft environmental assessment. So that's the NEPA comment period when we're looking more for those substantive comments that I talked about. Right now is more of the comments on what you'd like the ramp to include, or what concerns you have about the ramp. Those kind of comments are what we're looking for right now. And then when the EA comes out, it'll be on the project website, and we'll release we'll open again for that at that time. So I don't have an exact date. We're shooting for summertime, early fall for that.
If I could add something that might help people think about this process a little bit. So right now we have this recreation management plan out there that we kind of thought through and proposed some ideas that we want you to review and comment on. Once we have a better idea what we're hearing from the public on what that recreation management plan should look like, then we need to take that through an environmental analysis and say, what would be the impacts, potential impacts of managing recreation this way? And so then we'll have an environmental analysis that we seek comments on, if that helps make sense. Really good. And if you continue to monitor this website for the planning effort, we can keep adding documents, and updating the site over time. And if we continue, if we see that we need to clarify something, we can. But I hope that helps people understand the process is a little bit different with the recreation management plan than say other planning efforts that the BLM is doing for land use plan.
Go ahead, Greg.
Maybe Marnie and Denton know this better, but in our area here, are there any pay sites, or even in the state with BLM lands?
I didn't hear that. Any what?
Any areas with a day use fee?
Currently GFO has no day use fees within our facilities. Only, campgrounds and things of that nature, overnight use.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Annie.
Thank you. My last question is there anything else to compare this to? Any other area that it's kind of exploded like this area has in Alaska in particular? So it's sort of like, has this process happened in another area? So they've had to kind of come in and say, we really need to create a structure around protecting the environment and safety, et cetera. So they've gone through this process.
Well, what comes to mind is a couple of plans actually. So use some of the around Smith River. We have a Volcano River management plan, and We've gone through a lot of education on that river system to help people understand what they can do to help leave no trace and work together as users to make the trip pleasant for everyone. And I don't know, Denton's worked a lot on that. If you want to have anything, Denton.
Yeah, Annie, is it Annie? Probably our most recent management plan was the revision of the Delta River Management Plan, where it was broken up into RMZs, zone recreation management zones, similar to the resource setting characteristics for user expectations and preserving those resource and recreational values that exist. That was completed in 2013. So there wasn't an explosion of the use or the incremental increase in use as you're seeing in Castner. But we have done similar processes to address resource and recreational experiences. And the Delta River Management Plan is probably the closest one that comes to my mind.
At one point, we were managing the area that was Arctic Man at one time. And we were headed towards doing a plan for that area, but then the state took conveyance of it. So that's no longer BLM management, but yes, and that was an area where it just exploded in use.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'm not seeing any. Does anyone else have questions in the chat that maybe they direct message you, Linda? I don't have anything in my message box right now.
Hi,
I don't
yeah,
see. Okay.
I do have one. So is a day use fee possible within this plan?
This is then a day use fee is not proposed within this plan at this time. The area does not qualify as far as amenities to charge those type of fees. If that's clear. Thanks.
Yeah, Denton, I mean, day use fees are usually somewhere where you have more facilities or improved improved recreation sites, right? So a day use fee might be, required or needed when you're providing more higher level of service, like outhouses or picnic tables or campsites and that kind of thing. I think, do you concur? Just trying to help people understand sort of what kind of uses you would see or what kind of facilities you might see where you would see daily uses. Even though we don't have any right now at the BLM, they don't charge for use.
Linda, do you have any other questions in your chat?
I do not.
Okay, Kennedy?
I do not.
Okay. Well, if anyone wants to stay online, we'll be here until 7:30 and you can raise your hand and pop in and ask a question and let us know.
Thank you all for your time. I'm out of here, but appreciate the meeting and all the info. Have a
Thanks,
good evening.
Greg. Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Greg.
Yep,
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for participating.
no problem. Have a good
Yeah.
night.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thanks.
Thanks,
you.
Annie.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Showing some love for public lands.
Love, love. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Just raise your bid majority. You.